Hey y'all, welcome to the Backlog Podcast number 49, and today we got a chance to sit down and talk to Psychoblue. We talked about EVO Japan, Tekken 8, being a TO, and Street Fighter Cross Tekken. I hope you enjoy this episode.
Back when I was like on the Tekken Zaibatsu forums, I was looked at like I had stuff hanging from my mouth saying, hey, and we're watching Bokenger, this is like 2006, and like, what are you talking about?
I was talking Bokenger.
Well, the reason why is YouTube had just become like a thing back then, and that was one of the first things I saw on it that was available.
Nice.
Like
I remember watching the Slayers on YouTube.
I got a monkey paw wish, so I'll ask you this. Did you see... No, you did, because I saw it in the Discord. You saw the Saint Seiya trailer, right?
Yes.
Unfortunately.
I've begged for a Saint Seiya Toku for years. I actually did my own Saint Seiya Toku with concept art with a friend of mine years ago.
Mm-hmm.
So to see the monkey paw wish,
what you wanted.
Just like, well, it's an MCU wannabe. It's not really what I'm wanting. I'm wanting something kitsch like the Shin Ultraman, or like a Pretty Garden Sailor Moon, but Saints instead of Senshi. You know?
I mean, at least it's closer than the Netflix CGI version.
That's not hard.
It's something.
That's not hard, but it was based off the Netflix version. You saw that, right?
Yeah, no, I saw that. It was.
The thing is, it's not even. What's really sad, and this is how I know the flop gauntlet has been fully assembled. The Toei's director specifically asked it be like this because he thinks if it looks more like the MCU, it will draw in that crowd. And I says, yeah, tell Shazam 2 that and see how that works out. Or tell the Green Lantern movie how that worked out. And those names are a lot bigger in North America than Saint Seiya.
True.
Oh, really?
Saint Seiya is a lot more fun, though.
It's a lot more fun, but why do that when you already have a big market down south with the Latin America community? Why not cater to them? And then, with that built up, you can kind of push that as like international cinema. I feel like if you're trying to target the one market you've never managed to corner, and then do all the things that are already losing its drawing power years after the fact. It's hey, after EVO Japan, I'm not shocked that the director would have that approach. Just stick to my old ways and stuff that worked years ago, and maybe that'll still work.
Where's the Saint Seiya fighting game?
Actually, hold on one second. So they do have
Kamen Rider.
Well, what do you mean? They have Soldier Soul.
Oh my god.
Hey, hey, say what you want, but I like that game. I beat it too.
I prefer Sanctuary Soldiers. At least the Dynasty Warriors thing is not as... it feels better for what they were doing. I like they tried to remix the Sanctuary arc by having all the gaps between the houses be loaded to the gills with all the goons. That way you had no choice but to go through the house. Because in the old series, there were like clear spots where you could just walk around the house and still be on your way. And they never seemed to realize that. So at least now it makes sense. Okay, I could do this and beat this one guy and move forward. Or I could go around the edges where there are like 5,000 people waiting for me, as well as maybe a couple enemies I beat before who are already wiser to my ways that might not beat again. At least now it makes more sense. Because they had the sub-bosses too in that game.
So real quick, let's do the intro here. So, yo guys, what's up? Welcome to the Backlog Podcast number 49. I'm Matt.
Quintessence.
And today we have on Psychoblue here, and I was actually hoping to get his insight on some things. I really wanted to talk to him a little bit about some of the things that are going on in the FGC, particularly about the hitbox situation that's going on, some Tekken 8, and kind of what's going on with some Street Fighter Cross Tekken. So we got a lot to really kind of cover here right off the bat. I know we were talking about Saint Seiya, and I would love to talk more about that in the future for sure.
I could chat about that for hours.
So I'm curious. I want to hear it from you guys because I feel like I'm kind of not very educated on the situation. Is using a hitbox cheating? And if you didn't know, just for some context,
just resubbed for 3 months. Yes.
Recently, Capcom Pro Tour had banned the use of a hitbox during the Capcom Pro Tour, saying that it was basically cheating because you could hold more than one input directions at once in certain situations. I think it's like down and up. You get like perfect flash kicks, things like that. And I know Quintessence had some thoughts on it. I know Psychoblue had some thoughts. So yeah, I'm definitely. Is it cheating, guys?
First off, once again, thank you for inviting me. I am Psychoblue, conductor of the Hype Train, Mr. Hype Gems, #Crosswires. And up until the last 2 or 3 days, I was neutral on this situation. Mm-hmm. Even though I have seen, especially in Tekken, how all of the hard execution things like Perfect Electrics or Omen Thunder Godfist, Just Rain Skyrockets, etc., now made easier because of that thing. Mm-hmm. I still wasn't sure about how unfair it really was until I saw something in the CVS2 Discord.
Sure.
What you said about those perfect flash kicks,
yes.
Some games aren't meant to handle those kind of inputs. There was a clip of Guile doing walk-up Sonic Hurricanes, just walking up and popping it just like you would pop like a Fierce Punch walking up.
Oh.
And you could tell the game wasn't meant to handle that because when he walked forward, it looked like he was hovering forward and his sprite was completely still as he moved forward.
Wow. Okay.
And I'm going to get the clip right now as we're talking. By the way, anyone watching this wondering what I'm doing, I'm also labbing as we're talking. It helps me clear my thoughts just having the sound off and listening to stuff. I keep my hands busy. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to find exactly what I was talking about because I mentioned it in the Tekken Organizer Twitter space.
So,
but keep going.
So I mean, I'm kind of leaning. I'm not gonna lie. I'm leaning a little bit towards it's cheating because it honestly sounds like that a hitbox could be very easily modded. Without people knowing for the most part on, blocking or mapping a button to do whatever it may be. And the real question here is, how is it going to be policed? If it is, I don't think anyone's going to actually be checking to see if your hitbox is fine and it's not a macro.
I just posted it in the podcast thread if you want to take a look at what I'm talking about.
Yeah.
So, as you guys look at that, the caveat to having a game completely spaz out like this when it's in effect in the way Capcom is worried about, there's a visual tick in some of these games where it's like, this is not meant to happen.
Right.
So you're seeing him show at first, then you watch him walk forward and notice that his...
Let me just share my screen really quick. Hold on. I'm gonna capture this.
Oh, I see what's going on here.
Yeah.
Okay.
But by the way, I forgot who posted that. So whoever posted that in the CS2 Discord, thank you, because it really does prove the point on why Capcom maybe not be as extra as people are claiming. In fact, I'm seeing people show how it's quote unquote fair and just making their case worse.
Hold on.
Oh, Jesus.
Yeah, my bad. I gotta mute that really quick.
No worries.
It's cool. I just gotta mute your stream real quick.
Whoa, okay. What the? So he just straight up hovered straight towards him. And
the charge super.
Yeah. What? Okay, so it's basically just because it just wasn't meant to handle someone being able to move that fast altogether. So he's almost practically like wave dashing.
Yes. There's a player in my community who uses hitbox for Tekken. And by the way, great player. I'm not trying to shortchange him.
Right.
I'm trying to be as nice as I can when I say this. There were some things in certain games that were meant to be high execution, not just for you to pop off. They were made that way so that if you had that tool, it was not just earned, but you had to be perfect about your consistency with it. Otherwise, there's no point going for it. Just like in other games, you have to learn how to input perfect Raging Demons at the right time. Otherwise, you won't get the usage you want out of it as a command throw. But hitbox with all the different advantages it has, it's like it makes things, it takes away that barrier, and now it's become too strong. Some of those things that were meant to be exclusive, strong but difficult to do.
Right. So, I mean, I guess that is the other point is like, let's say if you're using an arcade stick, it could be an eternity from going one side to another, right? You know, by the time, you know, you've held back, they're already charged for like 2 seconds. I don't know, whatever it may be, maybe not 2 seconds, but they're already charging like long, you know, by the time you've started holding back to charge his Sonic Hurricane, right?
Yes.
Or, you know, the perfect flash kick where you literally just have to press up and then it kind of voids that out. But what do you think, man?
Well, okay. So personally, I don't think the hitbox is, you know, cheating.
Right.
However, when people modify them to have improper SOC decleaning, that's when it becomes an issue. Like that clip right there, that was improper SOCD cleaning.
What is that?
It was.
I've never heard someone say that term before. So clarify.
SOCD cleaning is basically like here. I have mine right here. So normally you would hold back and then press forward. It'll give you a neutral. However, if you have it improperly done or modified, you can hold back and then press forward and it'll give you a forward, which is an improper cleaning of the inputs.
Okay, so it doesn't void out. It doesn't make it neutral.
Yeah, so it'll just pick up the last input.
Yeah.
Like it'd be the same way if I did this, it would just go back. But it's supposed to be neutral, so that you can't do what was in that video, for example.
I think like the first thing that kind of comes to mind that it reminds me of is how Tekken has dash blocking. How like you can dash and block at the same time, and to me that's like, and I don't know how many other fighting games actually have that, but to my knowledge, like Tekken is the only one that kind of does that. I mean, in memory, right? So
it sort of has it.
What does?
DOA sort of has it, but at the same time, you also have a block button specifically.
Right. Okay.
Unist has like an entire tutorial dedicated to dash blocking.
Okay. Yeah.
You know,
there's a lot of stuff going on there.
Yeah.
So it just seems like do you guys think that the Capcom Pro Tour is being extreme in their sort of in what they're doing right now, or do you think that they're just kind of, you know, they're being reasonable and taking their precautions?
I think they're being extreme because they have like the manpower and the ways to check for proper cleaning on each hitbox and such that are like presented. So
yeah, but you'd have to you might have to check it every time somebody sits down to play.
Yeah, but that's as simple as tap tap. Oh, okay, tap tap. Okay, tap tap. Okay. And
then you have to have somebody at each station watching them input that.
EVO Japan already had that throughout the entire thing. There was like staff always hovering.
Yeah, but didn't they always have like smaller setups? They had like few setups, right? They didn't have as many as like regular EVO does.
That's and that is why that. Optic-wise, it's not a good look, but having a zero tolerance policy saves them the hassle of doing that, especially the situation where setups may be hard to come by, and you're already on a really tight schedule because you only booked the venue for a certain time, and all the various timing issues that come with it. Because let's say that you do the check and it fails the test. How long did it give someone to fix it? Do you get out of here?
You disqualify them?
Just disqualified. Yeah, I would just say.
I think that's what they would. That's what they probably do, right? I would imagine they wouldn't. It would be like zero tolerance. Like they wouldn't have time for that shit, you know?
Well, all right. Now we've mentioned that. Think about how that situation can go south, optics-wise.
I mean, imagine. Let's say your monitor isn't up to snuff. You know what I mean? And then all of a sudden, you know, you got to wait for another monitor to come by, and it's an hour anyway.
Oh,
sorry.
So we weren't going to talk about that.
Sorry.
The timing is like you have to hold the whole tournament up because of that particular hardware issue.
Yeah.
In the case of an event that would have these things, think about how long it takes for someone just to check their buttons. In terms of just normal button check for a default sticker pad. Now you add the extra check of, oh, this guy's a hitbox. That's another layer of check you have to do. And that builds up real quick in terms of how the pool is running, how quickly things are moving, especially when, again, you have to have this pool done by this time. And now you're adding a new wrinkle when you're already stressed for time in terms of getting the right people over the right spot and making sure that a match as it goes, this isn't like a warm-up round, or making sure their buttons are checked and that they're not fooling around or pressing pause or doing something illegal beyond what we're just talking about. It's just easier logistics-wise to have a hardline stance saying don't bring this stuff here because we're not going to humor you if for some reason we determine that what you just described is not the way it should be, because you have a snack box that lights up. You can see those inputs. Hitboxes don't have that.
It's true.
Yeah.
And now that leads to the next issue. Okay, now it's not as easy, not a visual tick or whatever to tell you what you're doing. And hey, someone with some technological savvy might be able to jimmy the light specifically to fool people to thinking it's this and that. There's just so many things, so much logistics. We're already seeing logistics now with EVO Japan having all sorts of problems with running their brackets or having enough setups or the foot traffic issues that compounded to the heat issues since the CO2's in the air on top of it being hot in the venue with all the different fans and stuff. And then you had, again, we talk about, I'm not going to throw names around, but I'm sure you know what I'm talking about. I'm not faulting certain people for, even if it's not as tactful as it should be, and their platform is too big, just throw it out there the way they're throwing it out there.
Heat of the moment.
The heat of the moment, hey, no pun intended, given how hot it was. That's why temper and temperature have the same root word. One leads to another.
Well, then when I'm angry, I get hot. I don't know. Yeah. Sure.
Temperature. There you go. The temperature is raising, and so is your anger.
Yeah.
But yeah.
Just as some like sort of background to like what you're talking about, you've done TOing, of course, for companies, correct? What's that?
Yes, so I have done TOing for EVO. I've done TOing for Final Round. I've done TOing for Combo Breaker, Fall Classic, a bunch of locals, my online events, and I also did a little bit of TOing for Capcom Cup 2019. For those, the LCQ who were unhappy, I do apologize for the mess that was made. A lot of things were called on the fly, but we want to at least archive the footage in a non-cell phone way. So thank you guys for your patience. If you were there listening to this and you were at that event too, so thank you. But yeah, I've done all these things, and whenever things go wrong, I always try to own up to it and learn from it. And because it's you want to do better next time because you love this so much, you're willing to put aside accept that you're human and put aside your ego so that you can improve for better.
Right.
I'm a competitor as well. Like, I've won events as well. I've won Cross Tekken at EVO. I've won Cross Tekken at Summer Jam. I've also won events for Soul Calibur 2. I've gotten top 3 in Tekken. I've gotten top 8 at Combo Breaker in the TMNT Cross Just League game. I also placed second in Smacherino League last winter. I play a lot of stuff, and I tend to do well because I know and respect the grind that comes with it. And being a TO is no different from that. You have to accept that there will always be something that didn't go your way, and wherever you fall in a bracket or running a bracket, even if it was a rousing success, it's probably impossible for it to go 100% right exactly the way you planned. There's always going to be some human element that makes things difficult. Some people don't like to hear that, and I think in the case of the hitbox stuff, I know a lot of people are trying to defend their stance. Oh, this is why hitbox is fair. And some of these videos I'm seeing are just making their case worse, particularly with what you just talked about with the improper cleaning.
Yeah.
So I think taking a hardline stance is just best for the sake of everyone who isn't a hitbox or a snackbox user, because these events, especially we're seeing EVO Japan, it's already that tight and that problematic. Imagine how much harder it gets when you are adding that extra check-in.
Yeah, and I would imagine that EVO, vanilla EVO US, whatever you want to call it, is way bigger than EVO Japan in terms of attendance. I can't imagine EVO Japan ran. I mean, they were able to run the way they were just because of like the attendance they had, right? So, I mean, like the human element gets even more difficult, than it already is. Yeah.
That's true, GP Bear. You could actually have 2 sets of firmware on your PCB and switch them with a switch.
Right.
See, there you go. You could fool people post-check with things like that.
Good.
Yeah.
Because not everyone is going to know all these tips and tricks. Like, we're just talking about all these situations that could happen possibly. And if I'm thinking about I don't even own these things, I bet you whoever owns these things and really is that desperate to take advantage of all of its eccentricities has already thought this through.
Yeah.
Because with the especially Capcom is going to take that stance because of how much money they're throwing around for Street Fighter 6 coming up. Like, this is first-person shooter esports type money, which is FGC is not ever. Like, the closest I can think of in terms of the scope, I remember how much of a statement Capcom made when they put the hype. Remember the Cross Tekken Hype Mobile first place one for their first Street Fighter anniversary tour.
Mm-hmm. It's been so long. I don't remember. I was watching like the FGC back then, but like I said, like it's been too long. Like I remember the cross counter stuff. I remember watching EVO that year, but that's about it. I remember seeing the 2v2 team tournaments, but that's.
I wasn't really into Street Fighter or Tekken at that point, so.
Here's a history lesson there, because it does tie into what we're talking about in terms of the scope. Mm-hmm. It's hard to think about now, given all of the retrospects, although I have tried my hardest to push it into a more positive light. Street Fighter Cross Tekken was meant to be Capcom and Namco's first foray into big-time esports.
Yeah, I think they were pushing hard.
For the Street Fighter, this is before Capcom Cup. There's a Capcom Cup 1 in 2013, but this is basically Capcom Cup 0 because it's the same concept. There was something called the Street Fighter 25th Anniversary Tour. It had an ongoing series of qualifiers leading into a finals for Cross Tekken, Street Fighter 4, Street Fighter 3, and Street Fighter 2. Or more specifically, Third Strike and Super Turbo. Mm-hmm. And basically, it was Capcom Cup in terms of how it was run in the scope. And then Capcom Cup was the succession of that concept, its own thing. Because the first Capcom Cup still had those games, plus Cross Tekken. And then by 2014-2015, it was moving just towards Street Fighter. Street Fighter, like, main titles. So with Cross Tekken for that first one, they gave not only $25,000, they also gave a car.
Wow.
A car. I call it the Hype Mobile.
Gotcha.
So we're going to fast forward, hard to believe, 11 years later. Okay, there is $2 million on Live Street Fighter 6. Mm-hmm. And people need that money, especially in this economy.
Yep.
So you never can discount how desperate someone can be to get that competitive edge.
Yep.
Because
especially with all these new blood coming in too.
We always talk about, and I'm also part of the TO Talks podcast on Twitter. And if you guys don't know that, I can link that later. It's a great place to be if you're trying to learn the tips of the trade in terms of running events and all of the tips and tricks that come with it. Not just technology-wise, but like morale-wise, finding your bracket runner, stuff like that. With what's coming up between the Street Fighter 6 stuff and then Tekken has its own world tour. Who knows how much money's being thrown into that? And you still have ongoing tours with ArcSys games. And again, they're going to follow Capcom's lead. There's going to be some significant sums of income tossed around at these events. Think about how much technology has passed since that first Street Fighter anniversary tour, or the first Tekken World Tour that followed that during Tekken 7's years. All these things, like, we have come up so far since back when I was a young, like, I'm almost 40 now, but I've been doing this for quite some time, and it's still amazing how far we've come. Now we're in a situation where technology has caught up, where you can get a competitive edge, and you can do it offline. Before, there was always some macro or some hint offline or online that someone said, that's funny. Kind of like when that Jason Riot guy got put on blast for allegedly using macros, and he had to prove he's doing everything legit, which is hilarious in its own way, but it's the same kind of thing. But now it's offline. It's just easier, not just for the time's sake, but people's dignity, if someone didn't get caught. That way, if they try and make a scene of it or try and fix it and can't, it doesn't hold up time. And it doesn't put a spotlight on them that would hurt them otherwise, sponsor-wise.
Well, so you highlighted the FPS scene a bit, right? Yes. In the FPS scene, they're constantly battling with people trying to, like, sneak cheats and hacks in. Like, people have literally modded their mice. So, like, they plug in the mouse and then it's like, boop, it activates, right? So, like, it is possible to, like, check all of these things, right? Because that's what the FPS community is actively doing. Like, they check everything.
Out of curiosity, is this the first year that they're going to PC? Are they doing the PC of the CPT this year? Or maybe I'm, like, confusing that with EVO, where they're gonna do. No, wait, Street Fighter 6 is actually gonna be PS5, right?
Yeah, Sony owns it. They're not
PS5.
going to. They're going to want to promote their hardware.
Yeah.
But I want to go back to the FPS thing. Are those FPS tournaments open bracket? Are you individually sitting down each and every player at one setup, or are you having a team come in who have already been approved and registered and checked, and then have it looked?
That's true.
Yeah,
that's true.
I
guess you'd have to,
for the Soul the FGC. Yeah, for the Soul the FGC, for us to have a situation where you could reasonably have time to check those boxes for what we were talking about, the cleaning issue. You would have to take away what makes us us. Like, what makes the FGC great is that anyone can enter, and anyone can hang, no matter their age or their gender or any other demographic that may typically be separated. And some of these games are old to a point where they can still be played competitively decades later. Like CVS2 is a great example. There was Harmony. I remember, because they've had debates about role canceling. Should we use EO or the arcade? Eventually they said, let's use the arcade version because the arcade is what we all grew up with, and no one has EO to really push that change. I might as well stick with the RC bit, just accept it as it's there. Especially since K group's the meta, and that doesn't even have RC. But now you have the video with the walk-up Sonic Boom, or the walk-up Sonic Arcane. That changes everything. Suddenly characters that were struggling, now you can just do, like, walk-up charge supers, and that changes a lot of matchups.
I mean, to go on, like, a little bit of a tangent, that's actually one of the things I love about fighting games is that you hear about all of this new stuff being found about, like, all of these really the older games too, all the time. Like Marvel 2, like, people are like, oh, you know, Dhalsim's kind of good in this game, and then, you know, it's like, my God, like, I hear new stuff all the time. People are finding new stuff about, like, ST, or, you know, just new tech and things that, you know, people are kind of uncovering, and that may not be necessarily technology based, but it could be an example of, like, oh yeah, well, hey, look, now that we use a hitbox, like, it kind of opens up a whole new world.
But it's not just limited to hitbox is the problem here, right?
Yeah.
Like, I could literally modify my DualShock controller to have like, ooh, R1, that's a right input. L1, that's a left input. And then I could just be holding left and be like, tap, 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 tap.
And I do that with my my Hori, because when I play Tekken, I don't have enough inputs for all my macros. So what I do is I map my tag input to be R1, and then I have my R1 be up here. That way I have a tag button I can use and still have
the commander.
But the fighting commander. But the thing is, it's the Hori Octa. But the thing is, the game's options allow for things like that to happen on purpose.
Right.
Because all I did is set my R1 to what would be left stick, the tag button, because this didn't have a left input for the way I'm setting it up.
Yeah.
But there are some games that don't allow that, and there are some exploits that were
Hori
made.
Commander.
Yeah.
Hori Commander has literally software where you can change how the Hori Commander works.
Yes.
Without any like knowledge or anything. You just go in there like, yeah, no, this button's now this button instead.
Yes. And
so like that's also a problem, right?
It could be depending on the game, I guess. I think with what's going on, I feel like just based on its visibility and how much people talk about how much easier things are on a hitbox or a snack box than normal, that maybe it kind of put a target on its back, and this is just because it's the most visible quote-unquote offender, this is the one they're targeting, because I suspect if they're thinking about this, then they know their game is going to be susceptible to it, and it's just not worth having to remake the whole mechanics to make it feel different just to avoid that issue, and just easily say, don't have this here and things like that.
Mm-hmm.
For time and convenience sake, I think that's just what they're looking at, and it's kind of like, make this be less than any other controller that's or controller, stick, pad, box, etc.
So do you just only allow arcade sticks and DualShocks?
I was actually
a DualShock when you walk in. There you go.
I was actually watching a video with Eris, and he's like, "Oh, we should." Honestly, I think they should ban controllers and hitboxes, and everyone should just use arcade stick. Like, he really thinks that. He thinks everyone should just use arcade stick. And I know that's never going to happen.
You can do an analog input and a D-pad input.
I can see, because I've heard arguments about that too. Obviously, I grew up with DualShock, and the big thing that really put the community on pads was back when the Tekken 5 cab came out, and they had a plug specifically for DualShock 2s. That was like the start of the shaking hands of pad players and stick players. Because that was basically Namco like throwing the arm and saying, you know what? Do what you want. We're going to put this DualShock spot here for you. So if you come to the arcade and you sit down at the cab, you're not completely defenseless because you have your DualShock 2 with you.
That's a great idea.
I know one of my earliest memories of playing on an arcade machine was I played Tekken Tag 1, and a friend of mine played in the arcades and I didn't. I played at home, and I was stepped up to an arcade cabinet because we were going to verse each other, and I just got swamped because I didn't know how to play on an arcade stick. I was completely lost without I was also probably like 12 or 13, but still, like, I get it, like when you're, I definitely can understand that. Like, I wish more arcade cabinets did that.
It was a newer concept. So we talk about, yes, where Eris is coming from is that you can map all these different macros playing Tekken. And it's also the situation that the game itself is specifically giving you that option. But like you said, again, hopefully they don't crack down on Hori. I'm assuming this was thought up when they released this thing, because Hori has a deep connection to Capcom and EVO. They likely said, hey, is this going to be kosher if we add this option? And I'm assuming someone said, yes, it's fine. So I'm going to assume it's fine for now. With these things, now you're entering a level of technology you didn't have back then. Like, Namco, in its options for the home ports, allowed you to map that in the game. It's not like you could jimmy your DualShock 2 with firmware to do a thing it wasn't meant to do. And because technology wasn't at that point yet. DualShocks didn't have the... Excuse me. DualShocks didn't have the various chips and various technological advancements that allow you to save the various settings you have put in. That also might be why when they released the Sony version of this Ori, they didn't keep the option to just press a button on this thing and change whatever setting you had on the fly wherever you are. You had to go into your computer and manually set which alignment you want for your pad before you unplug it and take it where it needs to go. Like, I have to go to my laptop and manually change from Street Fighter controls to Tekken controls if I want to play either of those games. As opposed for like the Xbox version of this pad, I can just press a button depending which color I set it to, and it's there.
I have the Xbox version of the Hori fighting.
It's so
commander.
good.
It's really
so
nice.
I'm using the PS1.
I can totally cheat the hell out of games with it.
Again, I try to use a little more fair because I have tried doing what you said to make electrics and perfects easier.
Oh, they're trivial. You're just like doop 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 every perfect electric.
Yeah, for me, I just like having the extra macros, so I don't use it like that. I tried it though. It's just each me just learn it manually, and either just not play Mishimas like that, one or the other. But yeah.
So I know we were delving deep into this subject, and I was surprised on how far we went, but I think it's really interesting. It sounds like it's very possible that this could be cheating under the wrong hands. And I think wrapping up, do we think that Hitbox is going to respond, because it sounded like they were kind of being a little immature as well about the whole subject, and
Hitbox did respond,
and I think that they may not, actually fix the problem, and they're just going to say screw it. And so, I don't know. What do you think? You guys think they're going to fix the problem, or are we going to?
So the whole reason the Hitbox was banned, right? On the hitbox.
Okay. Yeah. For example.
Down and press up, right? So normal SOD cleaning, by the rules, is down up means up, which is problematic for a few reasons. However, Hitbox has taken the very, very firm stance of down plus up equals up, because Capcom requested that they change down plus up to be neutral, similar to left plus right or right plus left, etc. And Hitbox refused to do that, and that's why it got banned.
So there you go. Yeah. So I'm not going to try and say they're as bad as this outfit I'm about to name, but it's the same kind of how you respond to situations like that tell these companies, did we make a boo-boo giving these guys this much influence? Think about what happened, and they're only just now recovering. And I'm going to give two examples. Let's start with what happened with my guy Arturo and Maturino.
Oh God, I didn't realize we were going to jump into this subject. I actually didn't even ask because I thought it was a touchy subject, but go on.
I need to, because again, I'm not no partner, but Arturo has done an immense help for me pushing all the games I push. I was at Capcom Cup talking to Capcom staff about bringing Cross Tekken back on Steam with a little bit extra pizzazz and support, and they were supportive of me because of the numbers I got with Arturo.
Absolutely.
So what I'm about to say, it's in support of him while also being fair.
Yeah.
Because I do think that everyone involved learned something. What happened with Arturo and Maturino, for those who are unaware, Arturo was deemed not distributing the various Maturino pots properly.
Arturo Sanchez, that is, by the way.
Arturo Sanchez and Marcy Furby. Yeah. And after some back and forth internally, Maturino released a very volatile statement saying not only is Arturo not there anymore, this is why he's not there, and then everyone assumed he was just pocketing money. And I had to go back into my Maturino logs at Arturo's. I I reached out to her personally first, saying I told him, look, no matter what happens, even if you're guilty, like hella guilty, I will never forget what you did for me. Just know that I am in your corner on this. Just talk to me. We all make mistakes and things like that. And he said, he insisted on his innocence. And I said, all right, so what I'm going to do for you is, as you build your case, I'm going to go back to every match we did together during the pandemic, and I'm going to make sure everybody got paid out. Anything I see that looks like it didn't got paid out under your name, I'm going to ask the players who won that day, did you get paid? And everybody came back to me saying, yes, Arturo paid me at this time. I asked him to pay me in PayPal, and he did so. Or, okay, everybody on this number has been paid out appropriately, and things like that. And I wrote down, I said, I have done my checks. Everybody's been settled up. And I told the various scenes I answer to, I am going to make sure that everyone here has been settled up, because I'm pretty sure everyone here has said I've been paid over the course of the last 2 or 3 years I've worked with Arturo. Then, as more information came out, Maturino and more information came to light that cleared Arturo in terms of pocketing money. It's more that he was distributing it in other ways, like I was saying. And Maturino is taking a hardline stance on how to distribute it, which I can see both sides of, because you do it for a certain purpose, and the optics, if you're not documenting, keep receipts, look funky. But the fact that all of that could have been handled privately, the fact that they chose to make a volatile statement like that just shook the whole FGC, given how much Arturo has done and how much Maturino has done, and then more information comes out where they didn't have to do that, and then Maturino backtracked saying we're going to retract all these different bans and stuff, and all the majors had to backtrack because they took Maturino's word and didn't realize that it didn't need to come to that. The maturity issue is what made everyone uneasy about Maturino from that point onward. I don't see as many Maturino pods as I used to because of that.
Yeah, jump the gun for sure.
I'll let the other person talk. Sorry about that.
Oh no, I was just saying, just adding, they just jumped the gun for sure, man. It's kind of wild.
So let's go to another outfit that showed maturity issues. Remember when Panda was our darling? Panda Global.
Oh yeah, Panda Global.
Man, the maturity issue kind of outed them on just how many problems there actually were. And it blindsided a lot of people at the FGC just how deep-seated these issues were and how they were being handled. And all Panda did was make it worse with their statements, with their maturity.
And could you explain to the people that don't know what exactly the issue was with Panda Global?
So Panda Global, they were another sponsor, mostly for Smash, but they had reached into other esports, and they were supporting some of the FGC's most prominent names and content creators. Justin Wong, our guy Punk, our ever eloquent Punk, Saint Cola, who is incredibly eloquent in a completely non-ironic way. Be sure to support Saint Cola in all of his commentary and gaming endeavors. Fantastic human being. Lots of players. As well as, I believe, Kizzy K, I believe, is sponsored by them too. Or at one point they were. They were caught up in this storm that was caused by the CEO abusing employees or not taking accountability in certain payment aspects or promoting aspects, or trying to gatekeep other organizers from having certain licenses for the Smash World Tour, because Nintendo was already iffy on certain things, and Panda was misleading players into thinking one thing or another. So when Panda was put the task of a public statement, it was met with kind of fiery defensiveness rather than the maturity you would expect from an outfit that you want to do business with.
Right.
And I think that damned them more than anything else. There's a saying we have, there's a saying I have, because I work as a behavior analyst. I'm a licensed mental health professional. How you respond to adversity says more about you than the adversity you find yourself in. We all find ourselves in situations that are uncomfortable, but how you respond to them paints a bigger picture of you than whatever it is you're on the docket for. And I think between Hitbox and Panda and Maturino, that's where, and even Arturo, when he had like the initial panic attack of trying to explain what's going on, then just make it worse.
Yeah.
Again, Arturo. And Arturo, if you listen to this, you know I love you. It's just that situation did kind of looked rough.
And if I'm not mistaken, didn't he also have some like personal issues kind of going on at the same time? And, you know, it kind of all just kind of culminated into like this whole mishap of sorts.
Yes.
And yeah.
The adversity and how you respond to it. And again, in Arturo's case, it's understandable. It's family. But how the optics look, without people knowing that was the problem or taking his word for it, because of the nature of what was being held against him, which ultimately amounted to, like, again, people saying he was being dishonest for one reason or another. That is what people focused on more than whatever it was he was doing. And that applies to how Hitbox has handled this situation, where Capcom said, look, if you're going to continue being a part of this, this is what we're worried about. We need you to alleviate our concerns. And I would have thought Hitbox would have understood we're doing this as a favor to you before we drop the hammer.
Yeah.
And assume the worst. We're trying to be civil here. Yeah. And they acted differently. And I have had situations where I've approached both players and organizers. Listen, I'm going to talk to you one-on-one about this situation because I have to do what's correct for my community, the cross-site community, and I need this handled. And sometimes they understand I'm trying to be civil. Other times they will say I'm trying to, quote unquote, not own up to whatever it is they're mad at me for. And I have to play the bad guy and take a hardline stance for the good of my community, saying, all right, we tried handling this the civil way. Mm-hmm. Now I'm in a situation where I have to make a statement about this or ban someone that I wouldn't like to, or things like that. It's hard because you don't like having drama, or you don't like causing drama, but sometimes you don't have a choice but to look someone in the eye saying, all right, we tried this every other way. We have to drop the hammer now.
Didn't, in like hearing you explain this also kind of, it brings back a memory of hearing like sort of a similar experience to how Spooky was sort of like why he stopped kind of doing the whole.
That really surprised me.
And, you know, I think he just kind of got worn down by, you know, having to deal with what you're expressing right now.
Yes.
Over a long period of time.
We're talking about the Street Fighter V thing. Talking about for a moment, I thought how Spooky and Arturo had that split.
Oh no, just the whole like him just deciding he didn't want to do like online locals anymore. I don't know specifically who, you know, he had the issues with. All I know is that he just stopped, you know, doing, you know, the online, you know, I don't want to say locals, but the online tournaments and dealing with players and, you know, being, you know, Team Spooky and. You know,
seems exhausting.
It's exhausting, and what I just described. We talked about, again, the accountability issue. Mm-hmm. You also have to mind, and this is again why I thought certain things, especially on, again, the supposed corporate side with Hitbox and Panda, all these other things, weren't being handled the way they should be if they're professionals. The story with that, if I recall correctly, with Spooky was that there were players who were complaining about something or another, and rather than either sucking it up and waiting until after the event was done and handling it privately on the fly, they took matters in their own hands and just, again, did what Punk does, just go right to Twitter and use their platform to create a mess. And that was the last straw, because I have to imagine all of the perceived ungratefulness must have been boiling for a while for Spooky, who's been at this long time. Like, he's been around since I started like coming to like national events and stuff.
Yep.
So to see him take that stance, it must have been finally the pot boiled over. And that's another thing, like Spooky has his own brand he has to mind, because he is one of the few true grassroots streamers to have moved up through the ranks to be part of this esports regime that now composes the top FGC games. he is one of the artifacts from the days of old that bridges that gap to make it so that these big events still have that feel of being open bracket, that feel of being like you're coming to test yourself, or if you're in the social aspect, meet your friends while playing the games you like. He is one of the pioneers to continue pushing that into the modern day when everyone is thinking, are these events feasible and stuff like that. So with Hitbox taking the stance they did, that's the maturity issue, and that I think damns them more than whatever it is they're in trouble for, and that goes with everybody else I just mentioned.
Yeah. So, and I think I sent you this question before, but it was like sort of like, what do you think about like grassroots becoming, you know, sort of more esports or something along those lines? But it sounds like you're kind of in favor of like, you know, grassroots more than anything, because you don't want the exclusion. You want the inclusion of like anybody walks off the street with a stick in their hand can like have a shot at playing, you know, all the like these bigger games.
They pre-registered, obviously. It's hard to
do. You know what I mean, man. You know, I don't like I like that idea too. I think that was one of the reasons why, you know, I loved the FGC as well, and it was like one of the most attractive parts of it. Not only just like the characters you'd see and meet, but like just that the fact that anybody, you know, with that you don't know, some guy, like I think I've heard Wooly on, I think I was listening to Castle Super Beast, and he mentions like Jury from Alaska, like some guy who's like really amazing at Street Fighter V got bodied by he didn't know the guy's name. He's just forever known as Jury from Alaska. You know what I mean? So I love that element to the competition. You know what I mean?
Arslan Ash from Pakistan.
Yeah, I think that was that was the other thing. Like every once in a while, like you find these people who are like, why can't I think of his name? Mena RD. Like Mena RD, I remember coming out of nowhere, or you know, I mean, at least me as like focusing more on Street Fighter. At the time, like Sonic Fox, just you know, coming out of nowhere, and all of these different people. I think it's one of my favorite parts of fighting games. But yeah, most definitely. I didn't mean to sideline your thoughts there, Psycho. But
I think in that situation, it's funny you mentioned that, because I won't say I try to walk the line, but because I'm also an employer, as a clinical supervisor, I understand the decisions you have to make as an employer for everybody who's working under your employee to do what's best for them. And sometimes those decisions aren't met or aren't understood by people who aren't in that world, or even people in that world sometimes might question it. That's one of the caveats of being a leader. You have to accept not everyone's going to like your decision, but if you've done the deliberation and not done it impulsively, you got to trust your gut and go with it. And I've been yelled at many times within the FGC for having certain stances on this. For example, the whole esports organizations, the different hands in the pot, is banning this, killing the FGC, is allowing this, killing the FGC. I mean, I've been called all sorts of names. I had someone a few months ago saying that I actively make the FGC worse because I joined Fresh Cut as one of its creators back in August, because they were listening to certain articles that turned out to be a little more sensationalist than maybe one would think at first, but that's not a here nor there. With this situation, like you said, I want to try and find a balance where everyone can eat, as they say. I think what makes our games great is that you can continue playing at a high level for years and years and years, and no other competitive video game does that. Like 2K, there's 2K, a new 2K out every year. The only reason I got the new 2K because Devin Booker's here. I'm a big Phoenix Suns fan. I've been a fan since Tom Chambers, but I'm no bandwagoner. So 2K, Madden, things like that, they're every year. And Call of Duty, no one's playing older Call of Duty. It's always like the new Call of Duty that gets all the shine, right? And no one runs events for the old Call of Duties. It's always like it's this one or nothing. They even shut down servers for old Call of Duty, so you can't even play them online anymore. That's very common. Look at the situation. Even going a little bit close to the FGC or FGC adjacent. Look at the situation Multiverses is in. People thought that game was ready to go, and now it's shut down for the next few months.
Well, it has to
next year.
It has to launch. It has to launch, you know?
Yeah, it launches next year.
And so think about all the money you have spent on the various cosmetics or the various characters that were in the cycle, and now you can't even use any of that. Think about if you were even close to the FGC. You can't even play PlayStation All-Stars Battle Royale online anymore because the servers are shut down.
Oh, no.
You can't play NBA GM anymore because the servers are shut down. You can't play W All-Stars anymore online because the servers are shut down. You got to parsec that stuff now.
Yeah.
I guess.
What about roller shooters though? You know, we got Counter-Strike forever.
New one.
What?
I heard the new one.
Oh, Counter-Strike 2 is what he's talking about.
So
Counter-Strike 2 is just an upgrade to.
Okay, that's fine. Okay.
Global Offensive. Yeah.
So it's hyper fighting then, or super turbo, whatever.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, basically, but it's free.
Okay, that's fine. Okay, so yeah, Call of Duty is an exception to the rule, though. All the other games I just mentioned have new full disc or full title updates that you have to play all over again because your own's about to be obsolete because no one runs the stuff for it anymore. Right. I mean, think about this. Are there any sports game? I mean, we have like Madden events and we have 2K events, the big esports. Is anyone running grassroots for a whole bunch of sports games? Like you have Madden over here, you have 2K over here, you have FIFA over there. No one's doing that because it's not designed for that. We as an FGC are unique in that you can have not just your main 5 games, and the fact you even have main 5 games in one venue in itself is an outlier, but you usually have an area where people can show up and either through sponsors or their own pocket for love of the game, push things for the various older games that aren't being actively supported, at least on paper. Yeah. Capcom put down 4 figures for another Vampire Savior tournament at East Coast Throwdown.
That's pretty cool.
And despite having that spotlight, you know what was the most viewed event at ECT? It wasn't that, and it wasn't any of the AAA games. It was Street Fighter Cross Tekken, 86,000 views. And I'm not saying
that's too big to fail.
It is too big. I'm saying this. The fact that people are rather in for the stuff that not only is not actually being supported, but had such a disastrous launch that's still having like content
infamous.
Content vultures will. That's what I call them. The people who make fun of games, I call content vultures because it's just they'd like to pick apart corpses.
Yeah.
There's still talk. Matt McMuscles. When I was at Capcom Cup, I had someone tell me they thought all the views Cross Tekken was getting on their algorithm. They thought it was one of those videos. They didn't realize it was my stuff. The tournaments I was hosting with Arturo, because they were just so used to people roasting it, they didn't realize. Wow, people actually want to play it? It's like unironically at a high level.
Alive? This game's alive.
I mean, and just to kind of add to that, like your thought of, I love that, and so that's like one of the things that I want to do with this sort of this FGC podcast is I like to meet the people who are still playing those games, and I want to learn about them. Like I went and I learned about like Dragon Ball Z Budokai and like the people that are playing that game, and I went and
those charge cancels.
Yeah, the guard cancels, right? So
it's so much fun.
Yeah, and I'm like, and Tenkaichi has like Tenkaichi 2 has tech, and it's like, why did I live my life believing that these games were just nothing? But then when you meet the people and you learn the things about the games, you realize, oh, there's so much more to this. I mean, obviously it's because it's not as, out there as something like, we all know, like Street Fighter, or I mean, I would expect at least Cross Tekken to, of course, have a bunch of tech, but nothing like, I don't know. I want to find a guy who knows a lot about Tobal number 1 or 2, whatever. I want to find that guy. I want to know what he thinks and whatever, and how he's going to bring this game back to life. But
where's the dude saving Sailor Moon?
Who's that? Yeah, the Sailor Moon community, right? All three of them.
That community actually lives in my area. She helped move into my house.
Is it Vic Viper?
She helped me move into my house 20 years ago. We became friends because we had the same band director, and I was a student teacher one summer as she was a freshman in high school. And then years later, when KO13 came out, we realized, whoa. No kidding, you were there? Because I didn't have her section. I had a different section I was minding at the time as a favor to that said band director. So it's funny how small the world is and how we're all making our mark in various ways. She has Sailor Moon and the various other older games I was alluding to. Yep. And I have Cross Tekken back there. And we've both tried to do our best to push our games to as high of a spotlight as we can. But it's not been done without pushback from not just having the hassle of not being on the current train, but people who don't understand if we're taking the quote-unquote sellout approach, it's because we're doing it for love of that game. Right. And I have, again, from my own experience, I can't speak for Vicky. I know she's had some hoo-ha with people in the past, but that's part of being a competitor. You have to put aside your ego or man up your ego when you need to, or push up your ego, however you want to say in a less genderizing way. You have to stand firm sometimes, and that can rub people the wrong way. And as a TO and community leader, I have to stand firm a lot for Cross Tekken and say I am doing this to get the spotlight that Cross Tekken has earned, because we have been here getting these numbers and proving all these things I've been saying for years and years and years, and you still want to say this and that about having our game be small. Yeah, put us on the same start.gg page and see how many people show up and say I'm providing all the converters that you need so you don't have to worry about having the right system. I've got that covered. Yeah. You put that on and see how many people show up saying you're going to have this many, and then you can tell me how dead it is, and then keep putting on a start.gg page, and then I can build up from there. There are individuals who feel like having more people in their game invites some kind of demon that they imagine in their heads, like someone will be an esports shill or someone will be a crypto shill, however you want to say it, things like that. I've been called that many times. I've been called, there's someone in one community who said publicly that I am shilling NFTs like I'm Logan Paul. And I'm like, all right, for Cross Tekken of all games,
shilling the Cross Tekken NFTs, man. I don't know about that, but I mean, that honestly, that
edition of Kuma now,
and not to cut you off too much, but like, but that sounds a lot like you're standing too close to whatever it is you're talking about, right? Like it's like, demonizing you, a guy who just loves Cross Tekken, and you wanna push the game. It seems like they just need to find somebody to blame, about whatever it may be.
But they're just looking for their out for like, this is your fault
for doing they're looking for an out because they see what I'm doing and they see the numbers I am getting and the success I'm getting, even though there's every single detriment, including the issue with the Steam store. I was at Capcom Cup telling Capcom, I've had this thing fixed for years. Why you take it down now for a year and a half and still not back up yet, if that's all it was? Capcom's esports community manager, and she's, again, fantastic. If she hears this, you're fantastic. Thank you for talking to me. She didn't know how easy it was. And this is at Capcom. Think about how easy just Googling something that's been fixed for years. You can still buy Cross Tekken off the GameStop online store and get global Steam keys. No one knows about it. So I'm having every detriment trying to grow the game with those numbers, because at least for Marvel 3, and while I am happy for them, there was a time Cross Tekken did better numbers than Marvel 3 during this pandemic. Thing is, though, Marvel 3 works out of the box. You can sustain that growth because the game boots up out of the box, even if the netcode's not that great.
Well, I mean, I think people are working at that too, even like they're, sort of, I mean, I can't wait until I'm really hoping for the day where we have some like excellent version of like implemented rollback that we can just, I don't know if this could ever happen, but something like Parsec, where it's a rollback version of Parsec, right? That would be amazing. And then you could run your cross Tekken, and you wouldn't have to have two people having the same game and having all those sort of which is I know it's not that big of a deal, but it is a barrier of some kind, because it's like a lazy barrier. It's like, oh, I have to download this game and then I gotta configure this emulator. That's asking a lot for some people. I feel like the closer you can get to convenience, the better.
And for Cross Tekken, the fact that there is a PC port that has rollback, that has all these things, even has refresh rate settings. This was, as far as I know, the first AAA fighting game to have refresh rate settings in PC mode. The fact that it has all these things that would allow it to be, even adhering to modern Capcom Cup standards, be a hit. All it needed is just an extra file in the install script for Steam, and they've taken the whole game down for however long it's been down, saying they'll fix it. And I'm at Capcom Cup, and it's that easy. I do have Event Hubs reaching out for comment, though, because they want to grease the wheels, because they understand it's been a long time. This should be done by now. And I spoke to Event Hub's director at Capcom Cup, and he's going to help me with that. Thank you, by the way, to Catalyst for doing that. But going back to the barrier part, they're the people who, as you said, projecting, like we're talking about.
Yeah.
And this is... And again, if they listen to this, just know I'm saying this to help you. And anyone listen to this who feels that I'm on this train trying to be mean or whatever. They see what I'm doing. And while I won't say jealousy, they do feel some resentment because I'm not easily fitting in. That even though I'm not in their circle and I'm not for all the things they're about in terms of how they lead, like they and I lead in very different ways. They feel that, as you said, if you grow your scene too much, you invite bad faith actors. For me, I am focusing on the growth first, and then if someone reverses the type, it's easy for me to just ban them, saying, all right, I need you to stop this now.
Yeah.
This is your warning. Don't do it again. And if they do it again, ban. Done. Don't worry about it. But others take a preemptive approach that just keeps their games cliquish and small. And I had a talk with I won't mention his name, a high-level player at ECT about this, and he had issues with the same sort of people when he was trying to promote retro games. I want to see more TOs do anything they can to push their games to a spotlight where they can be a mainstay, like a Marvel 3 that was supposed to have its time done, but now is back. Rather than say you're in this community and now you're not fitting in, so we have to let you go, whatever.
I think GP Bear, when he was on, I think he had mentioned something about, well, he's I don't know if you know GP Bear, right? So
he's fantastic.
Yeah, he's
amazing work.
Yeah, exactly. He's great, and he pushes Super Street Fighter Super Dragon Ball Z. sorry, Super Dragon Ball Z more than anyone. And I literally, I streamed the game like once, and that's kind of, I believe that's how I met him. And yeah, he was talking about the same thing, like possibly running a Super Dragon Ball Z, tournament at EVO, I believe, if I'm not mistaken. And that may or may not happen this year. And if it's anything like EVO Japan, that may be possible, with the amount of games that they ran there.
EVO Japan, like the way GP, and this is, again, GP's a good example of what I'm talking about. He is someone that you should want to emulate rather than whatever I'm talking about. GP Bear united the various factions of Super Dragon Ball Z fans into something coherent during this pandemic. The various top-level Japanese players who've been playing for years and years and years now had a way to communicate their knowledge to an international generation. It was necessary, particularly because of the pandemic, and the arcade that normally runs Super Dragon Ball Z almost shut down during that situation. What GP Bear did is he united that scene, and again, I am eternally grateful for doing so, because now you're having Justin Wong talk about it and how great it is. You're seeing other Fighter Z players starting to see the light about this is the real first quote unquote real Dragon Ball fighting game. And all these things. And to see GP here do that, I want to see other community leaders do that for their games. That's what I do for Cross Tekken. The fact that I'm at Capcom Cup talking to Capcom and their impressive numbers I'm getting at an event where Street Fighter 6 is about to dawn, that's impressive. And it took years of work and working through all these various obstacles. I don't want people to deal with the same obstacles I've dealt with. I want to make life easier for whoever it is who wants to pick up the torch, whether it be for Cross Tekken or any other games that we're talking about that have the potential to have that big comeback. Because with with Super Dragon Ball Z, you could theoretically, if it popped off enough, have it come back in some kind of old school fighter collection. Like they made it like the main game, in addition to a whole bunch of other like Super Totem games and stuff like that. And then you could really
don't know how often we talk about this. I'm literally talking about this with. So my whole thing right now is while I'm streaming I'm streaming every single Dragon Ball game on the PS2. That's my goal, right? And I've gone through all the Budokai games, Infinite World, Sagas, right, so on and so forth. Reached Tenkaichi. And I'm pretty sure I've been doing this for like maybe a year or two now. And the amount of times, I want to say it's at least once a stream that somebody comes in and says, they need to re-release these games in a collection. I would love to play these games. Give it online. Give us a new version of this game. And then Budokai Tenkaichi 4 gets announced, right? And it's like, well, why don't they go back and, give us those collections of the games, like you said, exactly, like, the Super Dragon Ball Z, like in a collection with whatever, give it with like Sagas and throw it in there with, Budokai, because no one's gonna buy Sagas by itself. I mean, somebody will, but I mean,
some madman.
Give us a physical version of that. I don't know. Absolutely.
Well, it's like what they're doing with the Naruto Storm Connections. It's just all of the old like Ninja Storm games just right in one little collection.
That's actually really cool. Yeah.
Look at how so if you want to know how connected I am in terms of like the really niche corner, like I don't consider Cross Tekken that far niche. Because for me, there's like a separation between, again, this is where maybe this divide is forming. Mm-hmm. For games like mine, I have an EVO Legacy. It's not a big one, and but beyond like my side tournaments, it's been on the main stage twice. It had the Duos one from 2012, and then the last one 2013. Yep. With that infiltration one.
Oh yeah.
He won both actually, but he won the singles one the year after.
Didn't he also win Street Fighter 4 that year too?
Yes, and he also won the 25th anniversary turn for Cross Tekken, and I think he won Street Fighter 4, one of the other Capcom Cups as well.
Yeah.
But yeah, but Cross Tekken has a main stage legacy, not a big one, but it's there. Same with Super Turbo, same with CVS2, Marvel 2, or going to other genres. Same with Dead or Alive. Dead or Alive has had main stage time. King of Fighters always had main stage. King of Fighters not niche, I'm going to take that off the list now. But Dead or Alive, Virtua Fighter, these games, however, whichever iteration it is, there is a competitive legacy in a lot of these games. And you'll often find the makeup of the communities are going to be of a different energy than, what's a nice way to say it? That stage time, like your One Must Falls, or your Breaker's Revenge and things like that. It's a different energy, and my statement that I was saying is that I want to see these games for like the really lower ends, or the ones that don't get any shine, try and focus on making their game look appealing enough where you feel like it's being slept on compared to these other legacy games. For the legacy games, our goals are typically more about making it shine in a way to make it look like how it looked back in its heyday, if not better. Cross Tekken draws because we've had years to work on the meta, and now high-level cross Tekken, which we always knew would draw if it had the stage, is doing exactly that. It's getting people to watch. Marvel 3, same thing. Marvel 3 did not have much official support from Capcom for a very long time, because that's when Disney changed. That's when Disney came in and said they didn't like how Marvel 3 was looking, and they supported it heavily.
They stopped patching it. Yeah,
they stopped patching it. They stopped pushing it. But now, even with its various problems playing online, the community found a way to make it shine, and now it is rightfully so getting its stage back at EVO. You can also look at when Marvel 2 always has its big movements, or when other throwback games get their time to shine, like Street Fighter 4. It's hard to believe that's a throwback given how important it is to.
It's weird. It's weird saying that, but yeah.
You see the difference between those communities and maybe ones. What GP Bear is doing is incredibly admirable, because he is trying to push high-level Super Dragon Ball Z, which is immensely hard, by the way. That game will give you hand cramps if you don't know what you're doing, and all the different run stops, fly stop stuff they have, and the fly unfly things. That can get real confusing. But to have people who have mastered the art of that take center stage and show the world what this game's about, like how Justin was doing, that is what will allow the game to shine. I want to see every TO, every community leader, try and find that moment with the people they have playing. Let's try and make this game shine. Because there are people, again, despite what people may say about whoever they feel is a bad faith actor, there are certain people who aren't bad faith actors. They're legitimately wanting to use whatever resource or stage or voice they have, because they respect the hustle. They respect the journey of trying to push a game to a spotlight.
Yeah, I mean, I think like another person that comes to mind, like two people come to mind, is like Nerd Josh and Juicebox as well, are like two people who I like. I think of like smaller niche games and like hustling and pushing those games. Like those are two people that they're always supporting the smaller games.
And because again, we respect that. Again, I remember there was someone ranting on Twitter.
Of course,
there's always someone ranting, but it was this topic, but he's not saying as tactfully as I am. And I was asked about it privately. You've heard of James MK, I take it.
I don't. I might have.
Does the name like ring a bell, James MK?
It sounds familiar. Yeah, I don't like, honestly.
It rings a bell.
It rings a bell, but I don't know if I necessarily follow this person.
There is an individual who's infamous on Twitter, FGC, which is again a real shame given his impact. His name is James Fink. He was, in terms of like his credentials, he was probably one of the first true competitive Mortal Kombat players ever. He was a tester at Acclaim who was in charge of making sure the home ports were passable for Mortal Kombat.
Early Mortal Kombat?
Like 2D.
Yeah, like Mortal Kombat 2 and like 1 and 3 or something?
And 2, yes. Mortal Kombat 1, I think, was his big one, but he's been responsible for various games. And as a tester, he was in tune with the arcade scene in his area. And according to one article, he became good at the game so he can get people to leave him alone in his office, because they would have a machine in his office that he would use to test the game with and test the different ports. And people would come in and play games, and eventually said, no, I'm going to beat you guys really bad so you don't come back and leave me alone. And that was his motive. He has not changed much in those 20-something years. He still comes off as very cranky. And his hang up this time on Twitter was he was saying similar things I was saying the various communities are making these things not as enjoyable. More so, not the fact that if you like these various games, that's fine. It's just, I think what he was trying to say was he feels certain attitudes within the community are holding back the growth of certain games, because again, not everyone's going to have the same ambition I am going to have in terms of pushing cross Tekken, or what JP's doing at Dragon Ball, or things like that.
Yeah.
I want to see less drama that doesn't need to start. There needs to be, in general, some... Because it feels like every time we seem like we have a quote-unquote good fate actor, some way or another they revert to type. And that we're going to circle back to Hitbox now. With Hitbox, everyone was singing their praise. I mean, Daigo is one of their main guys. And I think Daigo has been suckering people. Daigo is one of the people I respect with FGC, not just because he's a great player, because he's also someone who's done the health journey. He's tried doing nursing and stuff as well, working with the elderly in between his FGC endeavors. And I respect that. So I respect him as not just as a player, but as a professional as well. I don't think he was trying to sucker people into buying whatever scam people are saying Hitbox may have now. I think people tend to try and rally around one cause and then realize they're giving another one a pass that they shouldn't. Because there's a lot of situations where you will see someone, just like with Panda. Panda was doing great for a while, and then what happened. Hitbox, I mean, look, Hitbox was the toast of the town, and now this is happening. Maturino was the toast, the future of the FGC, and now this is happening. And all these various situations, and then you have, again, some people don't have a chance to really show their good faith because, again, people isolate one side or another based on whatever agenda is being pushed. And I want to see the only agenda FGC being, we will do whatever it takes to push our game to make it shine. I want to see that be the sole ambition. Yeah. I don't see that enough. I usually see cliquish behavior. I see people demonizing one person or another for stuff that doesn't matter. Like if you're not attacking someone for something that can't be helped by themselves, like you're not calling them names or you're not doing this, then say whatever you want. No one has to agree with you. But as long as you're like keeping things civil and not attacking someone for things that can't be helped, don't get your pants in a twist.
And you know, like I think I learned sort of this from, you know, we try not to, we basically here, we don't try to focus on too much of the negative stuff. Most of the time when we're talking about, when we talk about fighting games on the podcast, it's always about the new exciting thing that's happening. Like, I mean, one thing that I'm incredibly excited about, and I keep bothering Quintessence and other people around me to do, is play the Duck Station rollback that just came out on the PS1. Because of all of the cool fighters that are trapped on the PlayStation 1 that nobody got to play and experience, and you know, like your Street Fighter EX2, whatever it may be, and you know, rival schools, whatever. Those games are great, but nobody gets to play. Like I remember I had to host a tournament in my own house of rival schools and nobody knew what the game was. And I like hosted multiple tournaments of just like these niche games. And I was like, isn't this game cool? Don't you guys like this game? Like, and so I remember eventually I had like a group of people coming over my house like once a month just to play fighting games. I got them into playing Marvel 1. Like I'm not good at the game, but still, like these guys who only play Call of Duty, they only play like FIFA and stuff, they would come over my house and they would play on my bar top arcade that I built, or we would play Dreamcast games. And this was like 2017, 2018. And you know what? They shit on it at first, but then they realized how goddamn fun fighting games are. And this is something that like, I don't think, like, you know, you look at a game and you're like, oh, it has sprites, you know, you're not willing to give it a chance. But you know, damn, it doesn't matter what year it is, man. Marvel vs. Capcom 1 is a fun game. There's just something about it. You know what I mean?
So much.
And so when you have things like Duck Station giving you rollback, I get so excited because I'm like, oh, this is like a whole new world of people can try this game. So, but you know, I try not to focus on like this negative thing or that negative thing, you know, unless it's like Punk just being a punk and, you know, doing his thing, which is like, you know, it's going to get a mention. But really, what I really want to talk about is I want to talk about all these characters that got announced for Tekken 8. That's really what I want to talk about. So maybe we can delve into that. There's two things I want to talk about, guys. And I know, like, my camera keeps like unfocusing. Two things I want to actually talk about is like all the characters got announced and what you guys think about the heat system in general. And I don't know what you want to tackle first. Let's tackle the heat system, because it seems like that seems to be the spiciest one. And I have an interesting take, and I want to know what you guys think about this. But the heat system, I have a feeling that there's two things that concern me about this. One being, I haven't seen anybody sidestep in any of those videos, and I know that people are saying, like, I am, unless I'm crazy here, like I see very rarely any sidestepping going on. I must be crazy, and unless I haven't been paying attention, was probably that. But the sidestepping thing, but also I think that these heat systems are essentially, and correct me if I'm wrong, are these auto combos we're seeing here in Tekken 8?
There are auto combos, but those are also in Tekken 7 as well.
Well, yes, yeah, but I mean, you don't have to do them. You can.
It's not like it's a universal mechanic like it is in Dragon Ball. I don't think it'll be that.
Yeah. Okay.
But with the heat system, I remember when I first saw it, and I remember telling Rick at this at Colorado. He didn't agree with me, but that's fine. It reminded me of Akuma's FADC and how it works in Tekken 7. How hitting someone leads to big forward movement, and now they're still in your face. It's like they gave everyone that FADC / max cancel hit into forward dash, so you're still in their face, which I think is pretty obnoxious, as people, I'm told, didn't like that because it kind of made their Tekken finicky. And I'm normally not someone who tries to be too much of a purist, but I kind of have to draw a line here. It does look a little bit too wacky for me in terms of being Tekken. And I'm not... There are some things in Tekken I'll always have trouble with and that I may think maybe be too good. Like Korean backdashing, for example, can be, depending how you look at it, either part of the game or something that wasn't meant to be there because of how the expo was initially found back in Tekken 5 or Tekken 4, one of those two. But with the heat system, it feels like it's turning into something that's not Tekken anymore, I guess. It feels a little bit too 2D-ish, I guess. It feels like 2D was just one thing and Street was another thing, and now it's becoming just 2D with a dodge mechanic that's not particularly dodgy based on how sidesteps were in Tekken 7. And I'm told Tekken 8 may not be much different based on what people are saying in terms of how movement works.
Quinn, what do you think? What are your thoughts on it?
Okay, so I don't really have an issue with the heat system after we learned more about it, how most characters will have just a small section of moves that can go into the heat mode.
Yeah.
So that automatically makes it a lot better for me.
So you just can't pick. You can't just pick anything. It has to be a certain thing,
and it's a specific move to engage into the heat combos.
And I'm assuming that these moves probably have a risk reward to them as well.
Probably.
Probably.
I don't know frames and stuff, right?
I mean, I'm guessing. I'm guessing it has some risk, a large risk reward to it. For sure.
Yeah,
but
I'm not, there's just some things as well. I saw the list of universal changes that came out. No more running tackles bothers me. No more magic fours bother me.
Wait, no running tackles? There's no running tackles?
There's no running tackles.
What?
You run up and you're just I'm right in front of you now.
That's weird.
And I can see, again, it's not like it was a huge part of the game in terms of how often you saw in high-level play, but it was still something to think about. If you weren't respecting it, you were going to get, barreled over, and they made in Tekken 7 a little bit worse by just making it plus on block, but no unblockable status, or giving, some armor as well, so you had to worry about the spacing so you didn't get chased down and ran in. But now, again, it does look cool, though. It's just I'm worried about, am I just playing a 2D game when I came here for Tekken, the experience? Yeah, I guess for me, I'm worried about Tekken not being what it is anymore, losing its identity, and just being another fighting game trying to make everybody else.
Do you have the same worries there,
The
Quinn?
system's a lot more limited. Like from what I've seen, like you go in for like 10 seconds, right? And you can like increase it by being ridiculously offensive. But I feel like if you're gonna be doing that, people are gonna punish you.
Well, that's the thing. Like they said outright, this is what bothered people when they said it, because many Tekken veterans didn't agree with it, and I don't either. One reason I love Cross Tekken so much is that there's many different ways to play at a high level. You have offensive characters, defensive characters a little bit in between, and because of the way the game is built, you can figure out whatever game plan suits you, and it will get you places no matter what it may be. Rounds can end in either 5 or 100 seconds because people are playing the way they prefer to play, and they either have an answer or they don't. I'm worrying with Tekken saying they want to make the game more offensive and quote-unquote exciting. They're taking away a very important part of the game, which is defensive play has a part too. And people may be frustrated by highly defensive play, but given how in Tekken damage is very high anyway, and counter hits are so important, it's not like blocking forever is going to save you, because there's so many moves that are not just good damaging but are so many plus frames on block and paralyze you to a point where now you have no choice but to guess what the offensive party is going to do. Taking away defensive play entirely just makes the game something I feel is limiting it or taking away something that should have been a part of it.
That's fair.
But I think a big part of this is essentially we've had Tekken 7 for 7 years now.
Yeah,
7, maybe 8. I want to say.
Going on 8.
Yeah. So I think we definitely need to change. They have to change something, right? Well, something has to be different about this different version of Tekken, or why would people buy it? You know what I mean? I think personally, I think Tekken 7 is, in my opinion, is a perfect Tekken. I love it. It's my favorite Tekken ever. But that's just me. That's just my personal opinion.
I wish the movement was more even, but
Tekken 7 is very polarizing. I mean, sales-wise, it's one of the best-selling games in a long time for the series.
It is the best-selling game of all time.
I think it became
it is the best.
I wasn't sure because I remember Harada saying 5 in his various updates were really high up there. But yeah, with Tekken, that's the best-selling Tekken. But Street Fighter 5 is the best-selling Street Fighter in a very long time. You see people complain about that all the time. So I don't know if that's saying anything. For most Tekken, like old heads, they don't like 7 because of what you just mentioned, the movement. And now with this heat system, it's not addressing the core problem. Yeah, you have these Soul Calibur 5 / FADC hybrid type of heat system moves and movement, but it's not addressing, like you're saying, how sidesteps don't feel nearly as 3D-ish as they once were back in Tekken 5 or 6 or Tag 2.
I wish I could say feel, because I have not had my hands on the game, but you know what I mean. Yeah,
I've seen it, you know, I've watched it. I'm like, wow, that's way better movement.
Yeah. I definitely think that it's going to be, we're going to have 2 things. I think they do need to change something. And what that is definitely, they were leaning into kind of more like the special move type area of Street Fighter. And there are a lot of purists that aren't going to like it. But who knows? The game could surprise us. I do think that this game's going to follow the curse of Tekken, where it's like every odd game is like a little, you know, like it's a little weird because they're like sussing out some ideas. But I think it'll get back on track, and who knows? It might wind up like Street Fighter 5, where by the end of it, it's a pretty solid entry in the series. But I also think we're going to have a lot of the, you know how Twitter is, man, when a new fighting game drops, it's going to have the baby duckling effect where the people who played Street Fighter 7, the people who played Tekken 7 are going to be like, I don't like Tekken 8. And then, I wish things were different. And then, it's the same thing that happened with Street Fighter 4 and 5. And then it's going to happen again when Street Fighter 6 drops, right? You're going to keep having that same advent of, I don't like this game, it's different,
And here's where we go back to what we were talking about earlier. People will complain about this and that. Mm-hmm. I want to see people still host tournaments for 5 and 7.
Oh, of course, yeah.
I want to see people, whoever complains about that, again, even 5 for me, 5 on its worst day, I have played much worse than 5 on its worst day. I know it's hard to fathom given how 5 was received early on, but trust me, as bad as 5 was, I would much rather play 5 over like 30 other fighting games I've seen in my lifetime.
When I was playing Tekken 5, I had no idea about the FGC. Street Fighter 5. Sorry. Yeah, my bad.
It's fantastic no matter what. Even Tekken 5.0 has its
I was going to say.
But yeah,
I was like, people didn't like Tekken 5? I was like, Jesus.
Yeah, I was like, wait, am I remembering it wrong?
I'm in Street Fighter 5. How people... All the Street Fighter 5's eccentricities early on, I would still rather play with other stuff I played in my lifetime, so it's whatever. But the thing is, I want to see people who do complain about those things for Street Fighter 5 or Tekken 7 saying, I don't like Street Fighter 6 because of this reason, or I don't like Street Fighter or Tekken 8 because of these reasons. And I'd rather play, again, Street Fighter 5 or Tekken 7. I want to see people put their money where their mouth is and actually run stuff for Street Fighter 5 or Tekken 7. Because this is, I notice a lot. This is another thing I challenge community organizers to do. If you miss these games so gosh darn much, pull out a console, and say, I'm going to host for this, and this, and talk to other side tournament organizers, because typically the really big events have an area for side tournaments, like Combo Breaker has a big one, and EVO is going to have another side area again. Or CEO typically has a good side tournament area and things like that, or the various Big E events on the East Coast. Pull up with saying, I'm going to run a bracket for so-and-so, and see what happens. If you miss it, then keep playing it. That's what I challenge people. Now, if you don't miss it enough to not chase the esports bag of Street Fighter 6 or Tekken 8, then you don't hate it that much. Clearly, if you're willing to put up with all the stuff it has to continue chasing whatever monetary or accolades that come with these new games.
Yeah.
Or I'm not saying like you have to forsake one or the other. I'm just saying run a bracket for this old game as well when you're not doing your pools for these games, or have a schedule where, okay, this week I'm going to play this game, but next event I'm going to run this bracket. Find a balance.
Yeah. That's an interesting take.
Don't just keep saying I miss so-and-so. Show up and play it. Like Justin Wong showed up and played Cross Tekken with me at ECT because he loves the game, and he got great content out of it. And we, as I said, stole the weekend because he showed up and put his money where his mouth is.
Absolutely.
Like Guilty Gear heads, right? They're always like, oh man, Rev 2 was just so much better. SL Core was just so much better. Well, then go play those. They have like rollback and stuff now.
Just
You don't need to play Strive. It's fine.
KOF 13 just got roll. Well, it's gonna have rollback.
Exactly. It's got announced. Yeah.
I'm actually excited for that.
Crossplay also, right? Wasn't it?
Yeah, I believe so, though I didn't pay attention. I think someone had mentioned it's going to be across multiple... Actually, same thing with KOF 15. They just announced the crossplay, which is... it's going to make me want to play KOF 15 again, because I'm like, oh, I can actually get matches now. Sick, let's go.
You can get matches on PC.
I can get matches on PC, thank God.
Discord anymore.
Man, it was so sad, man. After like a month of playing that game, or a month or two of playing that game, I was just sitting there and I was like waiting for like 30 minutes. I was streaming too, and it's like I don't know who wants to like go to somebody's stream and like watch them wait for like 30 to 40 minutes. I don't know, man.
So, we're waiting again.
So we're gonna wait in this lobby for matches. Yeah, and then so what would happen was I would wait for for like 40 minutes, and then who would I get? I would get some like OG from like Mexico, and I would just get bodied for, that was pretty much the tale of KO15
his
for me.
name is Rugal Band.
Rugal Prohibido or something.
Organizers has the tag Rugal B. Go figure.
Rugal B. Yeah.
He's a CDS2 player more than a KOF player, though.
Okay, so I guess we can start to kind of crossfire, crossfire. We can start to cross some of these things out. So do you think we will ever get a Tekken Cross Street Fighter?
No.
Look,
sorry.
Why you gotta ruin my dreams like that? Why can't you just give me? Why can't tell me why, please? I want to know.
Because if they were going to do it, they wouldn't have added characters like Geese. They wouldn't have added characters like Noctis and Negan. So I'm going to explain what I mean. Let me turn my light on because it's starting to get dark outside. Just a moment.
Darkness imprisoning me.
Okay, so what I mean is that back when Street Fighter Cross Tekken and Tekken Street Fighter first got announced, crossovers were still kind of unexplored. I mean, Marvel 3 blew people's minds because there aren't many crossovers like that. And that was the first Marvel in a very long time. And Street Fighter Cross Tekken, nobody could have fathomed the 2D and 3D shaking hands. It was always too different. But now it's everyone versus everyone in every single game. Tekken has all these people. You have For Honor characters in Samurai Showdown. You have WWE Cross King of Fighters.
In a mobile game.
In a mobile, the fact that there's no mobile games back then. That's what I mean.
Gotcha.
These crossovers weren't as common back then as they are now. We have Street Fighter Cross Power Rangers, for crying out loud.
I mean, look at the
That's
roster
pretty sick,
for
yeah.
Smash Brothers Ultimate. Like, you're just like, okay.
Characters who aren't even Nintendo regulars there.
Yeah.
Like, I'm still waiting for
Sora from Kingdom Hearts.
I'm still waiting for Jago from Killer Instinct because the Super Nintendo link. But no, somehow that's too much because of Microsoft. Somehow that's the line that's drawn, even though Killer Instinct had that Super Nintendo connection more than all these other fighting game characters that are there.
I mean, they had Banjo, and they're both rare games, right?
For Street Fighter 2. Yeah, no Banjo. Yeah, Banjo. There you go. They have Banjo. They could definitely put in Jago or Spinal or whoever else. And don't say he's too violent because those were T-rated games.
I mean, they had a Mii costume for, like, Doom Guy.
Yeah, there you go.
Master Chief.
Yeah.
Like, come on.
Oh, that character from Fortnite?
Yeah, that one.
That's another example. That is why there will not be a Tekken Cross Street Fighter, because the ship has sailed for that. They could just have everyone versus everyone as guest characters, and that would scratch the itch.
So Ozzy is in Smash.
I would really like. I would still like it. It would sort of like it. A part of me has wanted it since it was announced. I've like thought about it at least every year. We talk about it on the podcast every once in a while. I'm like, man, I still really want it. And then even though like Harada has said it's not gonna happen, it's gonna happen, it might happen, it's not gonna happen, and so he keeps doing that. And I think he's doing it to like gauge interest in it, or keep the kind of the measuring stick out there. But hey, look, if you say no, I'm gonna take your word for it here.
He also likes to troll.
I mean, he's not Ed Boon, so I mean, I don't.
Well, that's true.
I'm going to say this as modestly as I can. If he is gauging interest in Tekken Cross Street Fighter, then sure. And I've talked to Harada many times. Harada's actually showed up to my tournaments just to watch in the background like a fan.
Nice.
If he is gauging interest in Tekken Cross Street Fighter today, he would have seen the numbers that I'm getting for Street Fighter Cross Tekken. Think about how, and telling you all the teeth I've had to pull just for Cross Tekken to get its fair spotlight and still get those numbers. If he is really interested, he'd be looking at that, and he'd be waiting for Capcom to make their move. So if there's like whenever, because eventually it will come back on Steam. I was told basically it's coming back, just be patient or whatever.
Yeah.
Even with the revelation of my fix and things like that. If it comes back to pomp and circumstance, then and only then will I say, maybe.
Maybe.
Depending how loud his return is, with no help from me. Like if they ask me personally, and some people at Capcom did ask me if it happens, to communicate with certain people at Capcom sets and stuff like that, to coordinate like a throwback exhibition for Cross Tekken's return, stuff like that. If Capcom starts doing that officially, then I will start looking at Namco like, okay, it's your move now.
And mind you, like Ono is gone now, and yes. I mean, and so Harada is our only hope in this endeavor. And so the only reason I keep a little bit of faith is because every couple of years somebody talks to him about it and he engages in the conversation about the possibility of it. And so it's sort of one of those things where it's like, okay, so every couple of years since Cross Tekken has dropped, Street Fighter Cross Tekken, has dropped. He's engaged in the conversation, so there's still a slight possibility. It might be copium. I don't know, whichever.
But now we have like Akuma in Tekken 7, right? Like
there's a slight
probably come back for 8.
Yeah.
There's a slight possibility for almost anything. Like I could learn how to teleport like Nightcrawler. It's almost astronomical, I will, but it's possible. With this situation, for me to change my mind from anything but no, it's not happening, what I just mentioned would have to happen. Not just Cross Tekken coming back on Steam, but Capcom being vocal about being back on Steam and pushing it in a way where it looks like the esports is back on, albeit on a much smaller scale than 6 or 5 would be. Just the slightest modicum of yes, we still care. Because if I see that from Capcom, then I'll believe Namco feels the same way, and then it might happen.
I also think that you also have to think too, it's sort of like with the way things have kind of panned out between the games dropping, they kind of fucked up with Cross Tekken because they wound up competing against themselves in what felt like at the time, at least with the game. So it felt like a lot of their business decisions didn't make sense. But I want to throw another question at you that's related to Tekken Cross Street Fighter.
Yes.
If you were to make the game today, like let's say they did announce it, they said, hey, look, we're going to make Tekken Cross Street Fighter. What would you do to make it be the biggest game ever, like Cross Tekken should have been? Like, what would you do to correct the problems of the past to make Tekken Cross Street Fighter like that pop that, Cross Tekken should have had and had for a little bit, but it kind of, it slowed down a little bit. Like, what would you do to fix the future, I suppose?
Oh man, I'm gonna try wording this as best I can. If you want to make it so that it really is the best ever, you need to find a way to marry the past and the present. I would give Tekken Cross Street Fighter, to make it the true, because again, now that Cross Tekken is out, that was pure 2D. Mm-hmm. There's going to be a heavy expectation to empathize the 3D aspect, because that's what everyone hated about Akuma, who had a problem with Akuma, that his 2D was strong, everybody else's 3D. Mm-hmm. I would give Tekken Cross Street Fighter Tekken DR movement. I want people to glide in all 8 directions.
Glide on ice, yeah.
Okay. Now that we have done that, I would also try to come up with a mechanic that is original to Tekken Cross Street Fighter. That way, characters coming from Street Fighter aren't dating themselves. Like, you can tell pretty easily which era of Street Fighter Akuma is from in Tekken 7.
It's from Street Fighter 4.
Because when he was announced, when he was first announced, Street Fighter 5 hadn't come out yet and Akuma wasn't there.
Yep.
So he's going off mechanics of an older game, and they made that very blatant. I would not age the game like that. Cross Tekken has mechanics that are unique to Cross Tekken, such as the launcher system and things like Cross Art and Cross Assault and the like.
We're bringing back Pandora?
If you want to bring back Pandora, I would do so. I'm trying to figure out
one that made DC.
No, I would do it. I would do it like Soul Charge. I would make it like a Soul Charge mechanic. If I was to do that, that's because there are key charges in Tekken, but at the same time, I might be saying that the heat because I see people install in Tekken 8. So maybe it's not original after all, but some kind of original Tekken Cross Street Fighter only mechanic that makes it its own thing. And I would apply it to every character rather than date them in a way where they're clearly a Street Fighter 4 XP or a Street Fighter 5 XP or things like that. Additionally, I would try and make the extra modes less one-directional. Like in Tekken now there's story campaigns. I would probably bring back old school arcade story modes with Tekken 5 style cutscenes in between. That way the single player experience checks out on a cast-wide level. I would also make sure obviously the netcode is up to snuff. And I would also add some extra modes and extra complete package bonuses, like how Street Fighter 6 is going to bring back Final Fight as an arcade option, or Street Fighter 2 as an arcade option.
That would be
cool. How Tekken 5 had Tekken 1, 2, and 3 as extra side games you can play for the PS2 version, because they had the arcade ports for that. I don't know which games I would pick, but something like that.
You know what I think. And so with Tekken 8 kind of coming out and introducing the heat system, it's bringing it closer to the idea of possibility of having it match up with some Street Fighter mechanics, right? Kind of like marrying these sort of ideas a little bit. What's that?
V triggers. It's like a V trigger, but not as. I'm assuming not at. Wait, no, because I think heat system's tied to rage. So yeah, it is like a V trigger. Go on.
Yeah, so it's they're kind of being able to match them up a little bit to have some sort of a universal mechanic in 3D, and they've kind of shown like, oh yeah, we can do 2D. That's not a big problem. It's just that the defensive mechanics to match the 2D aren't quite there. So there would have to be some kind of, like you said, some kind of universal mechanic to kind of match that. And so I mean I don't know. I think with the heat system, I think we could probably see that as a possibility. But obviously it would have to be a little bit more interesting. I think it'd have to be very interesting in the way it does it. But I mean also with the idea of us not getting Tekken Tag anymore, which that's unlikely considering
that's never happening.
Tag 2 almost killed the series, right?
Guys.
And this could be like our sort of shot at a Tekken Tag 3, or whatever tag system, Street Fighter could use. Maybe even bring in some, mechanics from Street Fighter EX3 or something. I don't know. Just pulling here. I don't know, man.
Ooh. 3. There's a reason why no one plays Street Fighter EX3. I'll leave it at that.
I don't know. I think the tag mechanics are kind of cool. But look, I don't know enough about the game. Just briskly watching it. I have it, but I haven't played it in a very long time. But either way, like I think so. You think with the possibility of them bringing in the new mechanics, maybe Harada, being interested in the game, and maybe with Tekken 8 and Street Fighter 6 being the juggernauts that they're probably going to be.
Yes.
We could possibly see a Tekken Cross Street Fighter in the future. That could be the next move after, maybe. Who knows?
I actually pitched that to Capcom, why you should bring back Cross Tekken, so it's possible they're thinking that too. I said you should bring back Cross Tekken on Steam and push it a bit, because we have not just the numbers I'm getting, but 6 and 8 are coming out. It's the perfect time.
Yep.
At the same year, so we'll see what happens there. But yeah, with both of them coming out at the same time, there's always been a bit of a joint monarchy between Capcom and Namco when it comes to FGC stuff. So they're not on bad terms, but it's funny how a lot of the weirs in Cross Tekken, like simple input options and things like that are now mainstays in all the other fighting games. So it's like Cross Tekken was maybe like 10 years too early, in my opinion. There's so many ideas, and Harada took the failure of it very personally, I'm told, and I understand. Ono did as well.
Yeah.
Ono in particular, mostly Ono did because he was the guy in charge of that, but Ono took the failure of Cross Tekken because he had big faith in the idea of gems, and I see where he's coming from all these years later, especially with the way simple. I'm going to explain this now. Think about how many games have simple input options. And think about how many games don't give you a good reason to do something other than just hope you get bored of getting beat on for people who don't use them, right? With Cross Tekken, it's more natural because you had to use like a whole slot of all your gems just for the simple input gem, right? So you were handicapping yourself already. On top of that, you were reinforced for doing good things by having certain gems on. Like if you blocked enough times, you got an attack boost or a defense boost, or if you hit someone with a juggle combo or a launcher combo, you got a meter boost. You got reinforced for doing the stuff you have to do in any fighting game. I like that concept. And the fact that there was such a high penalty for taking the easy way out compared to other games where auto combos are cooked into the game's DNA like other games, I like that because it allows you to have a natural bridge and a reinforcer for playing the game right. I like that idea, and I saw where Ono was coming from when he did that, especially with the higher gems that involves a good execution and how much benefit they have. I like the idea behind that. It just fell apart when it got to pay-to-win nonsense and things like that, like the really good gems. That's where it fell apart. But the concept, problem with. And I felt the way it was managed in terms of like the general idea, I like that idea because all the ideas that I just mentioned are now mainstays to other fighting games that people praise it for, having those bridges and those gaps and those ways to bring people in, stuff like that. Cross Tekken did that first, on top of being the first AAA fighting game to have rollback, because it was the first Capcom rollback game was Third Strike Online a few months prior, and the first in-house Capcom rollback was Cross Tekken. It's also the first PC game, I think, like I mentioned earlier, to have refresh rate settings, and now that's the big thing thanks to all the advancements Arturo and others are making with high refresh monitors and how much they can change the game for the better. So Cross Tekken was 10 years too early, and I didn't hate the concept of that others did. And I've explained many reasons. I've explained for years why I feel this way, and what I just said is like a small sample of how I feel in terms of some beginner mechanics over others. But I don't want to get into that because I know I'll get people's heads and twists if I keep going on about
auto combo
games. But
Hey man, I definitely appreciate your feedback. So with that, we should probably kind of close out here. Yo, Psychoblue, where can people find you, man?
All right. First off, thank you guys for coming all the way towards the end. I hope you guys appreciate all of the feedback and stories I've had to tell.
Absolutely.
You can find me on Twitter at Psychoblue9. My YouTube is Psychoblue SFXT. Additionally, for my other fighting game related socials, I'm also on Freshcut. They are a gaming clip site, and my tag there is just regular old Psychoblue. Additionally, you can find me commentating on NYC Furby on YouTube or on Twitch, as I'm a frequent collaborator with Arturo Sanchez, aka NYC Furby. I'm going to be hosting a yesterday I hosted a Tekken Tag 2 tournament. Go figure, we just talked about it. And we had a good turnout. I'm going to be streaming it Monday on my channel. And I'm also going to be on Arturo's channel next Sunday, the 9th, at 3 p.m. Eastern Time, as I will be streaming the Street Fighter Cross Tekken North American Monthly, and I'm told that was Cross Tekken at its finest, and I was told that by its champion, so we will see what happens.
At some point, I'm going to have to actually genuinely go back and try to learn more about that game, like put my hands on it, because like I feel like that's the only way I ever, like, other than watching it from a distance, I would like to actually try to learn the game at some point.
Hit it up when it's like on Steam.
I wrote. Well, you can still buy it off the GameStop online store. That key will work, by the way. So if you really want to play, you can do it. I'll give you my fix for it.
I might have
rollback. It has rollback.
It has rollback.
Like rollback.
I think, isn't there like a mod out too that has like the PS3 characters on it and everything like that?
You can't play online with that. You can't play online with that.
That's true. Very true.
So And the thing is, though, the characters they're reported, they're not complete. They're not going to play anything like the PlayStation characters because of all the weird animations and bad input. What's the term? Bad input immigration. So it's really funky. It's just not worked, in my opinion.
I can't play my box art Mega Man.
You can, but it's not going to have the animations and the inputs you want. It's just going to feel like a really funky wannabe.
Listen, this was all me just saying box art Mega Man. I just wanted to say time to bring home the bacon. That's really all I really wanted to say.
It's just in that particular community mod, it's not the way it should be.
Right.
The costumes are good though. I do like they had all the console exclusive costumes. That was cool.
Yeah.
But yeah, I also wrote, and this is my last bit, then I'll let you guys get going. I also wrote a Cross Tekken version 2013 Bible.
Yeah.
Because Brady Games never updated it for the final patch. I wrote my own guide after I won EVO, and I will put a link to that in the YouTube video as well.
Yeah, if you anything you want me to link, I will put in the description of everything I'm posting on. So, like the Brady game, whatever it may be. I took a little look at it earlier, but I wanted to put it in the video, and sort of like any kind of like Discords or groups that you're a part of that are cross Tekken related. I'll link it in the chat and description so that people can find you guys. They can learn the game. So with that, Quint, where can people find you, man?
Oh, I'm on Twitter, Quintessence HD. I'm on Twitch, Quintessence HD. I play Tekken 7 and various other fighting games and variety. And of course, on the Backlog Podcast.
Absolutely, man. So with that, guys, this has been the Backlog Podcast number 49. We will see you soon. Peace out, y'all. Bye-bye.
Until next time.